Welcome back, and today we are gonna be, well, I can't really call it flying because this thing hardly does that, but we are gonna be playing out the Premium Tornado IDS WTD61. And if you are wondering about the pre-order camo, it's actually a bit of a funny story and why there is a massive onion on the front of the thumbnail. So I asked this random Gaijin employee if I could have the pre-order camo, and he hits me with this. And I think to myself, damn, it is just not going to happen. And then a few days later he hits me with this. I'll add it if you put a JPEG of a big onion on the video thumbnail. Now, you got a damn deal because I want this camo, but joke's on you, it's a PNG. The issue with this plane is very simple. The airframe is simply not that good. It guzzles fuel, it's super heavy, and even when you pull fully on the stick, it just basically doesn't move. With the wings out, flaps down, it's decently maneuverable and you can use the energy retention to fight people. However, this never really comes into play because it only really works when it's in a 1v1 and you merge from the head-on or at least from the side. If someone latches on from behind, you're done. You only have 2 missiles for air-to-air purposes. You don't have that many countermeasures. They are large caliber and only flares is enough at 11.0 and the matchmaker is pretty forgiving. But that's where the advantages stop. And really the main issue here is the fact you only have 2 missiles at the very most, and the bomb load here isn't that impressive either. Sure, it's a decent amount of them, so if you want to go base bombing, be my guest, but it's all dumb ordnance and there's really no way to perform good kind of air support with this. It's essentially the same plane as we have over here. It's the IDS from the event, the MFG, which is funnily enough also a higher rank despite virtually being the same plane. The only difference here is going to be the AS-34s. So do with this information what you want. Considering the MiG-21 BIS Laser is at the same BR, if you want to grind airplanes and you only care about air, don't even look at the Tornado. The Laser is a much better pickup, and you know what my opinion on this thing is. It's not that fantastic either. It will get you through the grind. It is pretty consistent, but don't expect A-tier performance. And this thing is simply worse in almost every category, other than maybe having a bomb load, but most of you don't really care about that. And if you really want to go base bombing, I mean, I guess it's a better pick then, but that's about the only exception. Okay, the plane is bad, but let's take a look at some highlights of my suffering, why it's shit, why it's bad, and why it's potentially not very good. It's okay to fly if you just kind of scour around the map. I'm gonna be hiding most of the time. And also, I mentioned that you only have 2 missiles, so your killing power isn't that fantastic, but I haven't talked about the guns yet. I've tried about every belt, but every time this happens. It starts off with a hit. It doesn't do shit. Yes, these are the default belts. I tried every belt, none of them really seemed to work. I ended up going with air belts. It's quite rough, and it's not just the damage, it's also very hard to aim, because this thing is 1 a boat, 2 a cruise ship, and 3 a bit of an oil tanker. It doesn't really respond to your maneuvers too well, and because the rudder, I'm not sure if it is the rudder, but the roll is very awkward and it kind of bobs over the place, making it even harder to aim it. And then also, and this is a bit of a skill issue, you're not too used to this gun because you only find it on like 1 or 2 other planes. So you have to get used to the lead of this plane on either this thing or maybe on the Gripen. But the Gripen is, well, one in another tech tree. It is also positioned differently, and it's a much smaller plane, so the camera is different. So even though you might be used to the Gripen, you're still not used to the lead on this thing. And then to compound with the fact that this thing just doesn't want to put the nose where you want it to, is just extremely annoying. So we go head on with the F5, we stick a little bit too long. He sets me on fire and I think, no way, this is gonna work, right? But it does. We drop the fuel tanks and it stops burning. Now we are pretty heavily damaged and this thing doesn't really fly well even when it isn't. But I'm still not gonna RTB because I see more people around. So we go head on with the F4. We shoot a bit at him, we shoot a missile, we get another hit and it does absolutely nothing. We're not even gonna get an assist out of that one because it takes him a little bit too long to actually die. Why did I shoot a missile in a head-on like that? No real reason. The game is basically over and I thought to myself, well, if he doesn't flare or if he flares it wrong or maybe just too late, I might at least get a singular kill out of it. So I do a bit of a 180. The F4S is out of range, we're not going to do anything to him, and we are going to be engaging the F5 that's on the 6 of the MiG-23. So I think, well, maybe I can get another cleanup here so I can perhaps get 2 kills and 2 assists. However, we don't get the assist, and of course, as per usual with this plane, you're always just too late because you have to do it with your guns. A little bit unfortunate. Now we are on another map. It's the giant volcano map, which we see basically 50 times a day. And I see a guy in orbit, and I think, well, maybe I can try to pitch up, sling an AIM-9L from below, and catch him off guard. So I see the MiG-29. We are gonna go defensive. We dodge the missile by kind of notching him. He doesn't stick, which is great, so we can kind of fly away from him. And then as we are kind of skimming the mountain, we see another missile coming in. So we flare, but I want to make sure to use the terrain here. Then we pull the... And I just have to break character here for a moment, because I do want to talk about that right there. The tornado kind of just flies in place. I was fooling pulley there. I was yanking that stick like I do at night every day. But it just doesn't move. And it's not just me. And this is not me coping. I see this with someone like Caved Up. Check out the channel in the description, by the way. He makes tank content. I see this with me. I see this with all of the other people that play the tornado. Sometimes. People that aren't used to it. They crash. Everyone crashes with it. And it doesn't matter if it's the F3, the IDS, or any of the other versions. It just kind of flies straight when you pull. And I'm pretty sure at high speed that an F104 turns inside of your circle. Because that thing actually has some nose authority. This thing turns like an F104, but it also just doesn't pull at all. It also just kind of is on rails, and it's very rough to play. And, I mean, you have to navigate yourself around the map, and if you don't, you are going to have a bit of an issue. So we are going to lock onto that J8, he's not paying attention. We set him on fire with a missile, and we just keep flying straight. I tried to lock onto the F4E, but going a bit too fast to the right, wasn't sure if it was going to pull in, so I'm not going to waste it. We then switch on over to the guns on the Tornado IDS, and luckily I'm using the air bell this time, and it actually did something. We keep on going. I'm not gonna waste my time chasing someone that's basically dead, and luckily he actually manages to crash, and we are now gonna chase down this F4E. Now I am catching him, so I'm gonna try to get a little bit closer, because then it becomes harder to flare. There's a thing in the game right now called flare rise time, and it means that flares are not instantly all the way at their ideal temperature, so they take a little bit to warm up. And if you get close, and if people still have the afterburner on with something like an AIM-9L, it's not quite IRCCM, but it gets pretty damn close if they don't flare it properly, and he definitely didn't. So that's 3 kills, and that's the most I'm gonna get today. And we go head on with a pretty slow Mirage, and I think, well, this is actually fightable. The tornado is flying away, and this is ideal. He's not very fast, and I have the ability to kind of stall him out here. The issue is that MiG-21 is actually making its way over here the second he sees me re-engaging the Mirage. So now I can't really fight this guy. I was hoping that he would stick with the F4S. You can see that I have a lot of energy here and I can simply go up. But doing this would definitely get me killed to the MiG-21 that's now coming in for us. And I want you to take a look at my fuel, because right now we are already on 12 minutes. And this is gonna tick down very, very quickly. Then my arch nemesis comes in. It's the Tornado. And I mean, he doesn't really add anything here. But considering it's already 2v1 versus battle planes, I don't really need that thing, even if it's absolutely terrible. But after killing that guy, he actually turns around and goes back to the runway. Now, why the F4S didn't flare that in the head-on is forever a mystery, but we'll have to do with what we are given, because now it's a 3v1, at least on this side of the map. We go head-on with the Mirage. I'm just gonna spray a little bit, make sure that he actually dies. He doesn't, because we shoot too high, everything goes around him, and I was pre-flaring in case that the MiG-21 was already diving on me and shoots me with like a high aspect frontal missile. He didn't, he actually went over me and then came back down. And the Mirage at this point is so slow that I think that he's out of fuel. So we can now 1v1 the Mirage. I'm gonna drag him away for a little bit longer, and then once we start getting close enough, I'm simply gonna turn in. So we turn into him here. We have 3 minutes of fuel left only now, and we go straight up. Now we fold the wings out, and we are gonna make sure to use our energy advantage. So I want to go as steep as possible, because at these kind of speeds he loses the most. And once we get to medium-ish speeds, I'm gonna go horizontal for a little bit, make him pull into us, and then I'm gonna pull him straight vertical. And it's working out quite nicely. We are past his nose, he is about to stall out, we are gonna start dropping these flaps, and we can now kind of loop on over and stall directly on top of him. The issue is gonna be my fuel, so I now have to go to half afterburner, to not use as much of it. The unfortunate truth is that he still has some fuel left. He is super light and it's not really sustainable here. So I'm gonna try to go straight up. I'm gonna try to get him directly below me with the separation here. I should be able to kind of hammerhead him, fall directly on top of him and send him back to the hangar with relative ease. One more game, much more suffering. So we are gonna engage his F4S. He's going pretty slow, he's not really paying attention. It's an F4S, so I thought, well, he's not gonna flare it. I'm not really confident in my ability to hit people, even if they are that slow with this thing. So I thought, well, might as well shoot the missile, the game is almost over anyway. But he flares it, but we still hit him with the guns. Now the F-16 on R6, it's completely Jover, so I just run. I'm gonna leave the F4S for a little bit, and then come back once we have some position here. The F-16 comes for me again, we break back off, and we are allowing the F4S to stay on his 6 by doing this. And once the F-16 actually starts turning around, I'm gonna actually engage him. We drop the fuel tanks and the F-16 again comes towards me, or at least I thought so, because he just did the same thing. So he's not really paying attention, he's allowing me directly on a 6, and I know I'm a tornado, so it doesn't really matter. He's also running chaff, so I can't even radar slave him properly, because we don't have a pulse Doppler radar. And then the F4S flies away, but I'm directly on the F-16 6, so I'm gonna try to make a maneuver with a missile, or perhaps hope that he just flies into it. And I'm gonna try and stick on his 6. Now this is not ideal and I don't recommend doing this. But what can I say? I like killing people in shitboats and today is no exception. We don't have the lead there and I'm gonna be able to kind of pull on over him. And hopefully sit in this turning circle if he makes a bad line here. If he for example goes back down, I have him. The issue is he doesn't go back down, he does the stellar opposite. And he goes straight back up. So we are gonna go down this time around. But it's Jover again. He's on my 6 and if he decides to chase me, I'm dead. He is faster than me, he accelerates better, he does everything better to a very significant amount, I would say. And it doesn't really matter how bad I am, good I am, or how good he is, or how bad he is. It doesn't really change the outcome. There is really no conceivable way where I win this, because even if he makes a mistake, it takes me like 30 seconds to actually capitalize on the mistake. And by the time I have capitalized on the mistake is already gone again, because it's an F-16. So there's really no way for me to combat this, except in this kind of case. Because he just took off, he is going fast enough, but he's super heavy, he's completely loaded with ordnance, hopefully also with bombs, because he did have some bombs on the scoreboard. So we merge with him, we go straight up, and because he isn't going that fast just yet, and because he isn't able to pull straight up after us, we are now able to kind of just land directly on top of him. The same thing we did with the MiG-21 that we clearly killed and sent to the hangar with relative ease. We are gonna do the same thing with him. He's also cutting afterburner, he's rolling all over the place, looking at the explosion, he's also carrying bombs. So I mean, not really that impressive. But he died anyway and I need some footage, so here you go. Last guy here, F-16 just took off. He's going fast, he is gonna compress a little bit and he is full of fuel, so he's gonna be hella heavy. So I'm gonna try to merge at around 0.9, 0.95 to kinda force the one circle and see if I can kill him in the first pass. So I'm gonna pull directly inside of him, we're gonna fold the wings out and we are gonna be able to just pull inside of him and take half his plane apart. Now, him having more fuel and him being fast doesn't actually give me an advantage. It just makes his massive advantage just a little bit smaller. We then almost break our wings off, but luckily that doesn't happen. Thank you all for watching and you'll see me in the next one.